Hello, Econ students. This is Mrs. Blitzky, and I have the second half of your Chapter 2, Section 1 notes. And when we stopped just a few minutes ago, we were talking a little bit about the market economy. So let's talk about the advantages. There's individual freedom for all. There's an ability to have gradual change. There's a small degree of government interference, but not a large degree, but enough to kind of help consumers so that they're getting products that are going to be safe, but also to make sure that there's fair practices within the market itself. There is decentralized decisions making. People decide daily as far as what's going on and what they want and what they don't want. There's an incredible variety of goods and services. So if there's different taste among consumers, there are different products out there to meet those different tastes. And there is a high degree of consumer satisfaction because there are so many different choices that are out there. Disadvantages. Sometimes the rewards only go to the productive individuals with resources, and it does not provide for people too young or too old or too sick to work. Sometimes it does not produce enough public goods, and this would be things like goods that are basically made for all people to enjoy, such as providing adequate defense, maybe universal education, providing universal health care, maybe building more schools, better roads, that kind of stuff. Workers and businesses also face sometimes uncertainty as a result of competition and change. So as people's tastes change, their desire for certain products may also change. And hence, that might mean that certain industries are going to suffer. And that might mean that people are going to be laid off or in some cases completely fired. All right, moving on. The mixed economy, or sometimes known as the mixed market economy. This is an economic system that has some combinations of traditional, command, and the market systems. I will say this, the American economy is not purely a market economy, but it is probably a little bit of what I would call a mixed market economy. There are some elements of all of these different things. Certain things are government, obviously, once done, but for the most part, we're probably a little more on the market side than we are on the rest of these. Socialism, for the most part, kind of plays with the mixed economy. This is a political and economic system in which the government owns and controls some, and that is the key word here, some of the factors of production, not necessarily all of them. Whereas in communism, the economic and political system is in such a way that all factors of production are collectively owned by and controlled by the government. So when you talk about countries like North Korea, the government pretty much owns the economic and political system. Whereas in China, even though they are technically a communist country, not necessarily all the factors are controlled by the government. So there is a little more flex, and hence that might be probably more in line with socialism in a sense. All right. Characteristics. If the government or tradition, as well as the markets, answer some of the questions of what, how, and for whom to produce, then a society has a mixed economy. The type of political system in a mixed economy is less important than the way basic economic decisions are made. So it is possible that you could have a government that's a little bit more strict or demanding. But if they allow the flexibility within the government or within the economic system, it doesn't matter what the government's doing. Some governments provide decisions with the betterment of society in mind. And I think there's a kind of a push towards that here, even in the United States, that we should be, our government should be making certain decisions about healthcare and maybe even the environment. And sometimes that kind of gets people upset. Some governments, their only interference is in the key sectors and let the market determine the rest, meaning that it probably is a little bit more in the line of Adam Smith and the invisible hand. okay, or laissez-faire if you want to go with that. Examples: China today, you have a little bit of traditional economics going on in the rural areas. You got command issues when we talk about big decisions, primarily about the military and such. But you do have private ownership, which is more in line with the market economy. Norway, the government owns basically the petroleum industry and uses that revenue to keep fuel prices low, to finance education, highways, social welfare, and programs. There is an issue with that that's probably going to be manifesting itself probably in the next 50 to 100 years, and that is there is a limited amount of petroleum that is left for Norway to drill. And so once that has been basically pretty much used up, then Norway may have to look for other ways to finance their country and their government. And then finally, Cuba and North Korea, even though they have socialistic governments that control the resources, ownership and control of resources are extensive. So there is a little, but not necessarily a lot. All right, advantages. It does provide assistance for some people who would otherwise feel left out. If a democracy, then the voters can use their electoral power to affect the what, the how, and the for, and whom, I guess, decisions are made, even if the government owns no productive resources at all, meaning that government can pass laws to regulate certain things. And then in socialism, the for whom is addressed more directly. Those who are not fortunate or productive enough to take care of themselves still can share in certain benefits. And hence, that's the reason why some people love this concept of socialism. Disadvantages. There is a very expensive, higher cost for all citizens. This will probably come in taxes or program cuts when the government finances are kind of strapped. So certain countries of the world have very, very high taxes. We were talking about Norway. Norway and its neighbor Sweden have very, very high taxes. But at the same time, a lot of things that maybe we pay for out of pocket here in the United States, the government kind of flips the bill for. So there's a little give and take, I guess. Some socialist countries, the availability of services may be limited, or the quality may deteriorate over time. For example, Cuba, they get health care, but the care is for the most part substandard. It's not the greatest. Both socialism and communism have proved to be less efficient than capitalism. When we talk about like healthcare issues, Canada has a more socialized healthcare system, and it may take a long time for a patient to see a doctor who's a specialist, maybe in the field of oncology. That would be like cancer research. They may have to be put on the list. And in some cases, when you're talking about diseases like cancer, time is a huge factor here. You want to go after that as soon as possible, and because you may have to wait, you may have more likely to see stage 3 to stage 4 cancers manifest themselves. All right, because socialism has proved to be so inefficient, many socialistic countries today allow for more capitalistic development. For example, China is one of those. Thank you very much.